So what role does the food movement have in responding to the crisis we face? The ongoing daily exposure that our financial system is based on and derived out of obscene inequality, and the exposure that economic growth is at odds with ecology. What part can the food movement play in reducing the assault on our ecosystems and habitat that we know of? What element can the food movement play in creating community? What role can we play in offering simple, healthy food to people who are overfed and undernourished? And crucially, what part have we in the rapid shift we have to make to a low-carbon society as we teeter on the brink of runaway climate change?
Well, Scotland's a post-industrial country. We used to have heavy industry and we used to have a whole life and way of living that revolved around that. And now we've become a post-industrial consumerist country. And with that has come a variety of epidemics, an epidemic of obesity, with it type 2 diabetes, an epidemic of, you might call it, emotional and mental health challenges, things like addictive behaviour, loss of well-being, rise of depression.
We think that good food is a kind of elitist thing. It's for people with refinement, money and taste, and maybe people who are neurotic and have got enough money to be neurotic. And it's not for ordinary people. But that's very different from Europe, where good food is seen as a democratic entitlement for everyone.
The problems we face are the product of the whole of society, the whole way we live our lives. So for example, the fact that we've had an obesity epidemic which took off in the early 1980s is a function of the whole way we live our lives. You can't point to a single factor, a single food, a single behaviour which is causing the obesity epidemic. People call this the obesogenic environment, that we live in an environment, a whole society that tends to make almost the whole society overweight or obese. And so the insight here is that we need to change many aspects of our society if we're going to combat a problem like obesity. And that's very different from in the past, where we could use a vaccine or a health education campaign or a law to bring about improved health. And that insight means that projects like the Fife Diet project, which is getting to the very heart of how we use and think about food, the very fabric of how we live our lives, these point the way to a potential future way of dealing with problems that so far are proving intractable.
Well, the supermarkets have given us two ideas. One is that we're far too busy to cook, that food isn't really that important in our lives, therefore anything that's labour saving and convenient is something that we should be buying into. The other thing is that supermarkets have encouraged us to think that the planet is just a sort of global shopping trolley, and that it's perfectly reasonable and indeed sustainable to eat every agricultural crop or product in the planet every day of the year, 365 days of the year. They do things like special offers which seem impossibly good value. They constantly advertise on the basis of price and tell us that they're saving us money through a number of different price promotions. But when you actually look at the reality of these price promotions, you find that they're not anything like as good as they appear, and some of them are actually quite deceiving.
So it's not that supermarkets don't have goodwill or good people, and it's not that some of their changes shouldn't be celebrated, but we need to understand that they're structurally incapable of delivering you local food.
Well, the direct impact is obviously huge, and you know, shipping of goods and of food is one of the largest emitters. But I guess for me, it's less about the immediate impact of those emissions, and it's more the system that underpins it. That if you're focused on getting your well-being and your security by transporting beans from Kenya to here, if you're focused on being well off because you're managing to extract material from over there, what you're also doing at the same time is you're undercutting land rights there. Inevitably, to be able to import large amounts of goods from Africa, from where I work, you inevitably have to be trading with somebody who is a market trader, somebody who's basically a corporation, somebody who's a large player, and who will have doubtless got their land by pushing other people off their land.
So at the moment we've got a situation where financial traders, hedge funds, institutional investors like big pension funds, bankers are effectively betting on the future cost of food. So they're speculating on the financial markets around food commodities and the basic staples of things like wheat, maize, soya, which are very important to not just to us in this country for our diets, but in particular to people in some of the poorest countries where they form the main part of their diet. Speculating on the price of those on the commodities markets and in doing so causing price spikes, so causing the cost of food to shoot up, which for those people, particularly in developing countries where they spend quite a large proportion of their income on food, means that people are going hungry.
When I first heard about the Fife Diet project, it made instant sense to me, and it seemed so obvious it almost shouldn't need saying, but it did need saying, which is eat local food. Don't ignore the food that's on your doorstep. I also thought, well, that's a great idea, but realistically in Fife, will that be difficult? And what's been so exciting is to see how rich the Fife Diet is, and how much it is relevant to all kinds of different people. I mean, at the beginning there was a feeling that perhaps the goal was to try and eat 100% local food, but what most of the people said, look, they said we could nearly do that, but that's just a bit too much. And what we've come up now with is this 80-20 split, so 80% of your diet be local food, 20% be from other places further afield. So there's never been the sense that the food diet is a miserable hair shirt occupation for purists who don't care if they ever eat a lemon again in their lives, or who never want some spices from India. Fife is an interesting area because it has a real mixture of cultures and of people. And what is really good about the Fife Diet is that it has spoken to all these groups of people. And no one could accuse the Fife Diet of being a precious little elitist eating experiment for the neurotic rich. People of all income groups and all backgrounds have got involved in the Fife Diet and have found it enormously useful and almost like a revelation, because they've gone in tentatively and then they found that their diet has been enriched amazingly, and what's more, that they're actually saving money.
An example, however small, is much more inspiring and effective than a large policy or a large attempt to make a huge change. So for me, these initiatives are really how change happens.
Well, I think the Fife Diet project points the way in a variety of ways. The first is that it is a bottom-up project. It's real people living their lives in Scotland who are seeking inventive solutions to problems we all face. Secondly, it combines economics, ecology and health, and in our minds these three have to be combined. Part of the problem is that we tend to think in silos and we have experts who only work in those policy silos. The third thing is that it's really practical, and I think the fourth thing is that it's really pleasing. People find it aesthetically pleasing. They like the idea of living from local produce and slower approaches to food production and even food consumption. So for all of these reasons, it points to a different type of future. And as such, it's an inspiration and encouragement to other aspects of health that we're currently having such problems with in Scotland.
So I think the Fife Diet works brilliantly at getting people to slow down slightly and remember that they are bodies that need to eat, and this food comes from somewhere, and where does it come from, what choices do you want to make around that, and what kind of social relationships do you want to have around it. And as you remember to slow down slightly, as you remember to look at what you're making, you start to remember who you are in a sense, in a very basic physical sense, not being spiritual or metaphysical, just in a very fundamental sense. What are you made of? You know, who are you? Where's this come from? So I think we've been trained out of that kind of experience of being social beings into being kind of very driven people who have to get stuff done and get stuff through, whether as families or at work. And so Fife Diet, for me, picks up on that experience, which I've certainly had in African colleagues have had in South America, which is that actually food is absolutely fundamental and central to your day, and to also knowing that that's what your security is based in. That's what matters most.